They laughed at me because they didn't know I was the one who built this company.
He saw her every morning, mop in hand, head down, just another janitor. But the next moment, she walked into the boardroom and fired the CEO. Her name? Miss Denise. Not the quiet cleaner they ignored for 15 years. Not the woman they never greeted. She was the owner of the company, and what she said next, no one saw it coming. If you believe no one should be judged by the color of their skin, hit subscribe button. They thought she cleaned the floors, but she owned the building, and that day, she took it all back. Every morning at 5:45 a.m., long before the first executive arrived, Miss Denise was already inside. The squeak of her cart echoed through the empty hallways of Crestwell Holdings. Her gray uniform faded with time. Her sneakers worn thin from 15 years of walking. These same floors. She wasn't just cleaning offices. She was watching, listening, remembering. Most people didn't see her. Some pretended not to. A few interns smiled, until someone told them it wasn't professional to talk to the janitor. For 15 years, she wiped fingerprints off glass doors, emptied trash filled with crumpled memos, scrubbed coffee stains left by men who called themselves leaders. To them, she was invisible. To her, they were revealing everything. Behind the laughter in boardrooms, behind the late-night arrogance of men who thought no one was listening. Denise heard it all. She saw who stole credit, who lied about bonuses, who treated assistants like furniture, who joked about cutting benefits, just to improve margins. But here's what no one in that glass tower ever guessed. Denise wasn't just collecting trash. She was collecting truths, and with every insult, every cold shoulder, every moment they ignored her, the silent woman with the mop became the only one who truly knew how broken this company had become. Denise wasn't bitter at first. She kept her head down, nodded politely, went back to her work. But year after year, she began to see the truth. Crestwell Holdings wasn't just careless. It was rotten. One afternoon, a manager spilled his coffee across the carpet. Instead of apologizing, he snapped, "Make sure it's dry before the 3:00 meeting." The next day, he did it again, and blamed her for not cleaning it properly. Denise didn't argue. She smiled faintly, nodded, and tucked that moment into her memory. On the 4th floor, a senior VP named Douglas Fairbanks laughed loudly. "Can you imagine working here your whole life and not even having a desk?" His laughter echoed down the hall. Denise was just feet away, rag in hand, polishing glass. He didn't stop. He didn't care. To him, she wasn't a person. She was part of the wallpaper. But Denise saw everything, the unpaid overtime slips, shredded, in HR. The drivers with aching backs, forced to work without coverage. The safety violations, ignored. Because reporting them might hurt profits. She even heard one executive sneer, "Let the janitor clean it up. That's what she's paid for." And with every insult, every lie, every act of cruelty, Denise wrote it down. A small black notebook, hidden in the back of her locker. Dates, names, exact words, page after page, filled with proof, while the executives thought she was invisible. Then came the night that changed everything. Cynthia, a fellow janitor, broke down in the locker room. Her teenage son had been in a car accident. She begged for one day off, just to see him. The request was denied. Not enough coverage, they said. To the board, Cynthia wasn't a mother in pain. She was a number on a schedule. That night, Denise closed her notebook and made a decision. This company wasn't just greedy, it was cruel, and cruelty has consequences. For 15 years, they never looked at her twice. They didn't know she had the paperwork, the receipts, the ownership rights, signed long before Crestwell became an empire. They didn't know the woman they mocked held more power than anyone in that building. They were laughing in the boardroom. Denise? She was planning their downfall. Whitey to you. One night, Denise pushed her squeaky cart past the sixth-floor conference room. Lights were still on. Inside, CEO Thomas Wexler leaned back in his chair, laughing with his team. His voice carried through the glass. If they don't like their pay, let them drive for DoorDash. I've got resumes stacked to the ceiling. Laughter erupted. Then his deputy added, half these people should be grateful we even let them in the building. Denise stood in the hallway, unseen, silent. She didn't flinch, didn't react. She just listened. One more confirmation. This company wasn't just broken. It was rotting from the top down. That night, she didn't go home. Instead, she pulled out a badge, quietly borrowed months ago from a careless manager. It gave her access to the records room. After hours, no cameras, no witnesses. She moved fast, snapped photos of budget reports, pulled confidential files, copied internal emails, and then she saw it, a single line in the financial report. That made her stop cold, a $55,000 personal performance bonus. Approved by Wexler himself. In the same quarter, he cut meal stipends, froze all raises, and slashed overtime pay for the custodial staff. The hypocrisy burned, but Denise didn't. Rage, she smiled, because at that moment, she had the missing piece. The next morning, Cynthia stumbled into the locker room again, eyes red, voice trembling. Her son's condition had worsened, and management still refused to give her a single day off. Denise listened, quietly, patiently. Then she stepped outside, took out her phone, and made one call. Her lawyer, Elliot Miles. 2 words. It's time. Pause, then. Are you sure? Denise didn't hesitate. I've spent my life cleaning up their messes. Slight pause. Now, it's their turn. Over the next 48 hours, everything shifted. Files were handed over, legal paperwork prepared, and a secret board meeting was scheduled. No press, no warning, and while the executives laughed upstairs, Denise, she was preparing to walk through the front door, not with a mop, not with a cart, but with power, in a way no one ever expected. Tuesday morning. The quarterly board meeting at Crestwell Holdings was about to begin. 10:19 a.m. The mahogany table gleamed under the chandelier. CEO Thomas Wexler stood at the head, arms folded, already rehearsing his speech on operational excellence. Around him, executives shuffled papers and ready to talk profits, not people. At 10:05, the double doors opened. Silence fell. Denise walked in. No cart, no gloves, no uniform, navy blazer, pressed slacks, a slim folder in hand. For the first time, in 15 years, she didn't look like the janitor, she looked like she belonged at the head of the table. Wexler frowned. I'm sorry, maintenance comes after hours, we're in the middle of a meeting. Denise didn't blink. I'm not here for maintenance. Confused murmurs filled the room. Then, the door opened again. A man in a dark suit stepped in. Elliot. Miles, Denise's lawyer. He placed his briefcase on the table. Good morning. I represent Mrs. Denise Jenkins, majority shareholder of Crestwell Holdings. For a moment, no one moved. Wexler laughed, nervous, forced. This is ridiculous. She cleans floors. Elliot didn't raise his voice. He simply slid a file across the table. Partnership agreements. Signed in 1998. Notarized share transfers. Voting rights passed to Denise after her husband Roland's death. Every page, stamped, sealed, legal, Curtis Banning, the company co-founder. Flipped through the documents, his face went pale. This can't be right, he whispered. Denise leaned forward, calm, clear. You remember those contracts, Curtis. You helped draft them. The room fell silent. Denise placed her folder on the table. For 15 years, I've watched this company rot from the inside out. Her voice didn't shake. I've seen drivers denied overtime. Employees fired without cause, safety violations ignored, and executives patting their pockets, while workers suffered. She turned to Wexler, eyes locked. And I watched you turn my husband's company into a playground for your ego. Wexler slammed his hand on the table. You don't know what you're doing. Denise didn't flinch. I know exactly what I'm doing. Pause. 1 sec. And I've been preparing for this moment longer than you've been sitting in that chair. Elliot pulled out another stack of papers, letters of no confidence. Already signed by a majority of shareholders. Effective immediately, he announced. Mr. Wexler's contract is terminated. Security has been notified. Right on cue, 2 guards entered. Wexler's face turned crimson. This is a scam. You can't just... Curtis cut him off. Quietly, almost sadly. She already did. The room shifted. For the first time, every pair of eyes turned to Denise. Not as the janitor, as the owner. She stepped closer to Wexler's chair, and in a voice firm but not loud, for 15 years you looked past me like I was invisible. Pause. But today, you can't ignore me. Pause. Today, I take back what was mine all along. Security moved forward. Wexler grabbed his phone, pride shattered, and stormed out. The door closed behind him, with a heavy thud, for the first time in years. Crestwell Holdings was quiet. Denise stood at the head of the table, folder in hand. The janitor, gone, the rightful leader, had finally taken her seat. The boardroom was still heavy with silence. Wexler was gone. But the weight of what had just happened still hung in the air. Every executive stared at Denise, waiting, wondering. She didn't rush. Slowly, she closed her folder, placed it on the walnut table, and looked each of them in the eye. I'm not here to play boss, she said, soft but firm. I'm here to rebuild what this company was meant to be. One of the younger board members hesitated, then asked, What's the first thing you want to do? Denise straightened. Start by listening to the people who've been ignored the longest. That afternoon, she held her first meeting, not with the board, not in the executive suite, but with the employees, drivers, warehouse staff, administrative assistants, janitors. They crowded into the largest conference hall, confused, suspicious. No one expected to be called by the woman who used to mop their floors. Denise stood at the front. No suit, no tie, no microphone, just her voice. I want to start by saying thank you. Pause 1 sec. For 15 years, you worked harder than anyone else in this building. While others took credit, you stayed silent. That ends today. Driver raised his hand, went nervous, hopeful. Does this mean overtime comes back? Denise nodded. Yes. Pause. And retroactive pay for the last 2 quarters. A woman from HR stood up, voice shaking. And health coverage? It's been cut every year. Denise didn't hesitate. We're already reviewing new providers. Slight pause. And you'll all get a survey to weigh in. No more backroom decisions about your well-being. For a moment, the room was silent. Then, slowly, murmurs began. Not cheers, not claps, but something deeper. Hope, cautious, real. Denise smiled. Not a victory smile. A promise. If you speak, I will listen. Pause. And if you work, you will be respected. Pause. That's my promise. For the first time, in years, Crestwell Holdings didn't feel like a cold corporation. It felt like a company, breathing again. In the weeks that followed, Crestwell Holdings began to look unrecognizable. The marble floors, the glass walls, still the same. But the atmosphere, completely different. Employees who once walked with their heads down, now moved, with relief, with curiosity. Could things really change? Denise didn't sit behind her desk all day. She walked the halls, shook hands, asked questions, ate lunch in the break room with the same people they used to ignore. She brought back the annual Employee Appreciation Day, something Wexler had quietly erased years ago, renegotiated supplier contracts, funneled the savings into fairer wages, and promoted the overlooked into leadership. Slowly, people began to believe. This wasn't just another executive making promises. This was real. One evening, she returned to her office and found a folded note on her desk from Cynthia, the janitor whose son was sick, whose request was denied. The note read, "I didn't think anyone like us could ever sit in that chair." Pause. "One sec. You proved me wrong." Denise read it once, then again, and tucked it into her top drawer, knowing she'd keep it there forever. But questions still lingered, whispers in the hallways, murmurs in the cafeteria. Why did she wait so long? Some asked with curiosity, others with doubt, a few with quiet resentment. Denise never got defensive. When asked, she simply folded her hands and said, "Because power only matters when you know how to use it." Pause. If I had spoken too early, they would have dismissed me. They would have said I was overreacting, exaggerating, making noise about nothing. But 15 years of silence, pause, let it hang, that made me undeniable. She explained, I wanted the rot to rise on its own, for the corruption to reveal itself and without my influence. If I had rushed in, they would have spun the story. But by waiting, I let them write it themselves. And all I had to do was show the truth. Music swells slightly, soft, proud piano. It was a lesson bigger than the company. People aren't invisible. Because of their uniforms, they aren't worthless. Because of their job titles. Sometimes, the quietest person in the room holds the most power. And when the time comes, the whole world has no choice but to listen. One afternoon, Denise walked through the same hallway where Wexler once smirked and told her she'd missed a spot. The carpet was spotless now, not because she had cleaned it, but because respect had returned to the building. An intern passed by, slowed his steps, nervously smiled. Good afternoon, Mrs. Jenkins. Denise smiled back, warm, kind. Just Denise, she said, and kept walking. That weekend, she hosted a small gathering in the company courtyard. No speeches, no corporate banners, no staged photos, just food trucks, folding chairs, and laughter, real laughter. Alonzo, a longtime driver, raised his soda can. To the quiet ones, he said. Denise clinked her can against his. To the ones they never saw coming. The lesson was never just about her ownership of the company. It, too, was about how quickly we judge people by what they wear, the job they do, the title they don't have. Denise wasn't the exception. She was the reminder. A reminder that people aren't invisible just because you stop looking at them. A reminder that respect shouldn't come from corner offices, wire glass walls, but from humanity. So the next time you walk past someone you've never spoken to, the janitor, the delivery driver, the receptionist, stop for a moment. Say hello, because you never know whose story is quietly unfolding. Right in front of you, you never know who might be holding the keys to the entire building. If you believe racism should end, hit that subscribe button, because somewhere right now, another Miss Denise is being ignored, overlooked, underestimated, and maybe, just maybe, she's listening.